Like we always do on these second and fourth Thursdays, we got this very interesting, very edifying class. Stick to the script, like we do every second Tuesday. It's in the classroom, so we teaching you something new, something different. A little different from the Bible basics, a little different from the Bible history. We try to give you something. We try to spice it up for you, right? And every fourth Thursday we do in current events. So today is the second Tuesday. So today we're going to get into a particular breakdown or a particular lesson, rather. So take us to the PowerPoint real quick, Shamar, please. So today's lesson is going to be on the Hebrew calendar. How do we calculate our feasts? Right? So, first things first. What does it matter? Who cares? Why does it matter whether or not we keep these feast days? Because some people teach that this is just, it's the Mosaic covenant. We don't have to do it anymore. We can't do it while we not in Jerusalem, so on and so forth, right? So it's like, what are we keeping it for? For what, right? Let's go to Exodus. Let's go to Exodus 31. And I believe I want 13. Let me double check. I want Exodus chapter 31. And I want verse 13.
The book of Exodus, chapter 31, verse 13. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep.
So it says, my Sabbaths ye shall keep. Now here's the thing. When you read through Leviticus 23, you see all the feast days. The majority of the Lord's feast days are what you call Sabbaths. So it says, all of these Sabbaths ye shall keep. You are supposed to do this. You better do this, right? Read.
For it is a sign between me and you.
It says it's a sign between us. Read.
Throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Most High that doeth sanctify you.
So we see that it's literally a sign. It indicates that we are his people. It indicates that he is our God. So it's very important that we keep these feast days. Verily, we shall keep his Sabbaths. That means for damn sure, you better keep these Sabbaths, right? Let's jump over to Leviticus 23. Leviticus chapter 23. And I want verse 4.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4.
Now, let me see. Read verse 1 first and then drop down to 4. Verse 1 and 2.
Verse 1. And the Most High spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel.
So now, the Lord is talking to Moses. This is a commandment he's given Moses. You go tell Israel, read.
And say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feast.
Now drop down to verse 4.
Verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons.
It says, these are my feasts that you are to proclaim. Now, these are specifically dealing with the seasonal feasts. He said that you shall proclaim in their seasons. It said, but speak to Israel and let them know, these are my feasts that are even convocations, meaning you're supposed to come together. This is a commandment that you better come together and keep these feasts. Why? Because in Exodus 31, it told you. It said it's a sign between us, so you better be doing it, right? Now let's jump over to, let's go to, is this what I want? No, I want to go to Genesis 1. I want to go to Genesis. Well, actually, yeah, go to Genesis 1 and 14. So it says, these are my feasts that ye shall proclaim. This is going to be a sign between you and I. And so now the question is, so we see why it's important. It literally is an indication as to the Lord being our God and us being his people. It said, this is an agreement between the two of us. So now the question is, okay, how do we determine the feasts? How do we know when to keep the feasts? Some people say, I've literally heard people say, well, we keep what is it called? The Feast of Trumpets would be in like July. The Feast of Dedication would be in September because that's the 9th month. Because they're looking at a calendar that's not our calendar. So now the question is, okay, well, how do you determine these feasts? What does it look like? How do we figure out what month we're in, what season we're in, what day we're on in the month? How do we figure these things out? Let's read Genesis 1. And we want to start at verse 14. Yeah, verse 14.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14. And the Most High said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
It said these are going to be your indicators of what season you're in, what day you're on. What else? Seasons for days and for years. So it said, how are you going to be able to tell what season you're in? How are you supposed to keep the feast, so on and so forth? It said, I gave you instruments in the heavens. I gave you what people call astronomical ordinances. I gave you the sun, the moon, and the stars. But let's further read and let the Lord elaborate. Read verse 15.
Verse 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
Read.
And it was so. And the Most High made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
So these are all the lights in the firmament of heaven. Now, sidebar, the moon itself does not emit its own light. There are certain people out there that teach that, and it's just factually incorrect. The point that the Lord was making was that you will note the moon, when it is lit up, it literally will light up the world, but it does not emit its own light. Let's jump over to Psalm 104. Psalms chapter 104, and I want verse 19. Read that.
The book of Psalms, chapter 104, verse 19. He appointed the moon for seasons.
Hold on. Slow it down. It said the moon was appointed for seasons. Now, I just want to give you a brief understanding. The moon itself is not what determines the season. The moon itself determines the months, but the only way that you can understand what season you're in is if we go back to Genesis 1:16. It says, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars also. And when you read verse 14, it says these lights are going to be for signs, seasons, days, and years. So seasons are determined by the moon in conjunction with the stars. You see certain bodies of star clusters, also known as constellations, that will tell you what season we are in. So it said he made the moon for what?
For seasons. The sun knoweth his going down.
Okay, so now we see that the moon is what helps determine the seasons. Why? Because every full lunation cycle, every time the moon goes from dark, waxing crescent, full moon, all the way back around, we know that a month has transpired. But how will we know which month has transpired? We have to look at the stars, the constellations, right? One more. Let's go to Sirach 43. Ecclesiasticus 43. And we're going to read verse 8.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 43, and verse 8.
Read that.
The month is called after her name.
This is talking about the moon. It says the month is called after her name. The word moon and the word month are synonymous. They're the same thing, right? Read.
Increasing wonderfully in her changing. Being an instrument of the armies above. Shining in the firmament of heaven.
I'm sorry, I want verse 6.
Verse 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season.
To do what?
To serve in her season.
So we see that the moon is, again, a factor in determining the seasons. Read.
For a declaration of time.
So knowing the day that we're in, it's also it literally declares the time. What day are we in during the month? It helps to determine the season that we're in. Again, a part of the time. The time is the season of the year that we're in. Spring, summer, winter, fall. Whether it's that month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 12. The moon does these things. Read.
And a sign of the world.
So it's literally this is how we determine our seasons. So this is how we also determine our feasts. So now the first thing that we have to do, because we're going to get a full, complete understanding. So we see now feasts are determined by the moon, the sun, and the stars, right? We understand the significance. It's a sign between us and the Most High God. This is something that we were supposed to be doing to show forth our love and obedience to the Lord, right? So now the question is, how do we go about this now, right? So the first thing we have to establish, how many days are in any given month, right? So let's go to Genesis. So to establish that, we're going to see what the scripture says about how many days are in a month. So we're going to go to Genesis 7. Now, mind you, we're going to hit some scriptures, and then we're also going to do a little bit of basic math. Genesis 7, chapter 11. And I want to read 11, then we're going to drop down to 24.
The book of Genesis, chapter 7, verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month.
So it says on the second month, the 17th day of that month. Read.
The same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open.
Excuse me, that's all I need. Drop down to verse 24. So it's talking about the flood. It's talking about the flood during the time of Noah. So now, what we're locking in right now is how many days is in an actual lunar month, biblical or Hebrew month, right? So this is how we're going to do it. It says on the second month, 17th day of that month. Keep that in mind. Drop down to verse 24.
Verse 24, and the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days.
So the second month, 17th day of the month, is when the flood started. And it was 150 days that the water was on the earth, right? Drop down to Genesis 8 and verse 3.
Genesis chapter 8, verse 3. And the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days.
So again, at the end of the 150 days, from the second month, the 17th month, 150 days prevailed. Then the waters abated, meaning it subsided. Read.
The waters were abated.
Verse
4. And the ark rested in the 7th month.
In the 7th month, read.
On the 17th day of the month.
17th day of the month. So the flood started, second month, 17th day of the month, prevailed for 150 days. And then on the 7th month, 17th day of the month, it was over, right? Take me back to the PowerPoint real quick. So it says from the second month, 17th day, to the 7th month, 17th day, that is 5 months, because between the numbers 2 and 7 is literally 5. So second month, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. 5 months in between. But these 5 months also equaled 150 days. So now, how do we get how many days are in the month? Let's do some basic math. Basic division. 150 days divided by 5 months will give us how many days are in each month. So 150 days divided into those 5 months will give us 30 days per month. So now we understand, and we're going to get further proof of how many days are in a month. So we see here 30 days per month, right? Let's go to Psalm chapter 81. Let's even further prove that there's approximately 30 days in a month. And I say approximate because, remember, fixed time became a thing when Esau came into power. An hour was not exactly 60 minutes. A day was not exactly 24 hours. That came into play, I believe it was a few hundred years ago. It may have been like 1,000 years ago, but a few hundred years ago, right? So there was no exact fixed time, but there was an approximation, which is where they got their fixed time numbers, right? So Psalm chapter 81, let me get there with you. I want to go through it with you. Psalm chapter 81, and I want to read verse 3.
The book of Psalms chapter 81, verse 3.
Actually, we're going to read down to 5. We're going to read the whole thing first, then we're going to get into it. Psalm 83, Psalm 81, 3 through
5.
7.
Psalms 81, verse 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob.
So we see it says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon at this time appointed on this particular solemn feast day. Let's see what feast day is talking about. Let's read on. It says, for this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob. So this was a law that was given to us, right? Read on.
This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony.
So this he ordained in Joseph. Again, this is talking about Israel for a testimony. Read.
When he went out through the land of Egypt.
When he went through the land of Egypt. So there was a feast day that we were supposed to keep, that it was ordained to us when we were in Egypt. Read.
Where I heard a language that I understood not.
When somebody heard a language that they were not that fluent in because they grew up under the Egyptians, when the Lord came to talk to them. Read.
I removed his shoulder from the burden.
So we were going through affliction. There was a burden on us. We were in servitude. Read.
His hands were delivered from the pots.
Uh-huh.
Thou callest in trouble.
We cried out to him in trouble. Read.
And I delivered thee.
Read on.
I answered thee in the secret place of thunder.
Uh-huh.
I proved thee at the waters of Meribah.
And proved us at the waters of Meribah. Read.
Selah.
Selah. Right? So, Banaya, what feast day is this referencing?
Passover.
This is talking about the Passover, right? So now we're going to deal with verse 3. This is very, very, very important. And this is why it's very important to go back and learn the original language as well. You may not become fluent reading it all the way through, but you can at least understand a lot of the cultural context and when certain words are used, what it means, and so on and so forth, right? So now we're going to hit a little Hebrew. So let's go to Psalm 81 and 3. Take me to the PowerPoint. So Psalm chapter 81 and verse 3, right? So let's read verse 3 again.
Psalms chapter 81 verse 3.
Uh-huh.
Blow up the trumpet in the new moon.
In the new moon. So to the far left, give me a second because I'm going to have you guys, I'm going to follow along with you guys. Right here, this one right here, this is the far left. It says the new moon. The new moon, the word for the new moon is Chodesh, or Chadash, really. Right here, H2320. So it says blow up the trumpet in the new moon. These are the different ways that this word is used. So in context, it can mean any of these three things. It can mean the new moon, meaning our actual first day of the month, the new month, or every month. It can also mean the first day of the month or the lunar month. So it says blow up the trumpet in the new moon, right? We'll get it in context in a moment. Read on.
In the time appointed.
In the time appointed, H3677. The time appointed is talking about a full moon. So blow up the trumpet in the new moon or the new month during the time of the full moon. So the trumpet is supposed to be blown on the full moon on this particular new month. Why did they call it the new month? Because it's the very first month of the year. It's the New Year's first month. So blow up the trumpet on this new month during the full moon. Read.
On our solemn feast day.
On this solemn feast day, the Chag day, right? Now that's talking about one of our festivals, one of the feasts, one of the festival gatherings. And we just showed that this particular festival was what day?
The Passover.
It was the Passover. So the Passover falls on the first month, the new month, on a full moon. Now let's see what day the Passover actually is. Let's go to Leviticus. Again, we're establishing how many days are in a month right now. So we saw in the scriptures, according to Genesis, that there are 30 days in a month, right? Now we see here, well, we're going to see here what the scriptures also say. Take me to, what did I say I want? Leviticus 23. And I want verse, I want to say it's 4. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 4. We'll start at 4 and 5.
The book of Leviticus chapter 23 verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which he shall proclaim in their seasons. In the fourth day,
Read that again.
excuse me, I apologize. In the 14th day of the first month, at even, is the Lord's Passover.
Verse 6.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread.
So it said so what day is the Passover?
The 14th day of the month at even.
Okay. So that equates to the 15th day because we know that our days start in the evening. So that's why it also says that on the 15th day is the Lord's Passover. So I'm sorry, is the unleavened bread. So we see here that, take me to the PowerPoint. So we see here, if the Passover is on the 15th day and the Passover is on a full moon, which is halfway through the lunation cycle, then we can know that it's going to be approximately 15 more days to become dark, which will be day 30. And the cycle will start over. And all you have to do is you have a number of moon apps that you can look at yourself and count the days that it takes for a lunation cycle to go through. So in short, we're seeing that the moon has approximately a 30-day cycle. But let's see what science even says. So I'm going to breeze through these because I just want to show you guys the sources. You can look them up. I have all the links to the sources at the bottom. You can write them down or pause the video when you watch them back. So the synodic month, synodic is just another word for lunar. So the lunar month is the mean, which is the average, interval in days between exact conjunctions of the moon and the sun. As observed from the earth, this refers to the astronomical new moon. So that's going to be very important as well. So it says the lunar month is the average interval from new moon to new moon. It says the current value of the synodic or lunar month, rounded to the decimal, is approximately 29 and a half days, 29.53059. So it says the lunar month is approximately 30 days. Read it again, or 29 and a half days, which is approximately 30 days. Now let's read on. It's another source. We measure the lunar month from the precise moment of a new moon when the sun and the earth aligned on opposite sides of the moon until the next new moon in a period from 1600 to 2600. So they're giving you the average of what they got, right? It says the average was 29.53057 or 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 2 seconds. So we see here again that even science is telling you it's about 30 days. It's 29 and a half days, right? Let's get another one. Excuse me. Yeah, what is a lunar month? It's the duration between successive new moons. So from, again, new moon to new moon. Also called a lunation or synodic month. It has a period of 29 and a half days. That's the mean, meaning the average. But the true length varies throughout the year, meaning 1 month it could be 29 days, another month it could be 31 days, it could be 28 days, it could be 30 days. But when you average it out, it is approximately 29 and a half, which is basically 30 days. So it lines up with the Bible. The Bible says the month is 30 days. Science says the month is 30 days. If you go on any on any moon app, and you scroll through just each day one by one, you'll see from the new moon till the new moon, it's going to be about 30 days on average, right? So now here's the next question. So now what we've established, bring it back to me, Shamar. So far, what we have established is the importance of the new moon. Not the new moon, the importance of the feast days and understanding the calendar. Take it back up here. There we go. So we've understood the significance or the importance. We understand how the feast days are determined. So by the sun, the moon, and the stars, this is how we create our calendar. And then how many days are in a month? We see that it is 30 days, right? So now, take me back to the PowerPoint. We're going to be going back and forth some more. It says, so what does the moon look like when it's a new moon? And this goes into what we read earlier, the astronomical new moon versus the traditional or the crescent new moon. Now, disclaimer, this is for everybody. Disclaimer, because when Israel is defending something, sometimes they get a little petty. You show me in the scriptures where you see Saturday.
Right.
You're not going to see that. We know this, right? So now, this is important. The disclaimer is there is no scripture that specifies whether the new moon is a crescent or if it's dark. So in the time of our people, in this particular time, it was understood already. That was not a problem. We knew when the new moon was. So in the event that someone is trying to say the scripture doesn't say the new moon's a crescent, well, it also doesn't say that it's dark. You do not read that anywhere in the scriptures because it was understood. So,
Bring it out.
question is, how do we figure out when the new moon actually was? Well, let's find out. Go to Sirach chapter 5. Ecclesiasticus chapter 5. Sirach, as most people like to say. Ecclesiasticus chapter 5 and verse 15. Let's talk about it tonight. We're going to learn a little something.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 5, verse 15. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small.
It says, be not ignorant, meaning make sure that you educating yourself. Make sure you know a little bit of everything. It says, be not ignorant in anything in a great or small matter. So guess what? That means whether it's astronomy, you better know something about that because you're going to have a lot of people, especially people who are atheists or only believe in science. They're going to be trying to come up against the Bible. And if you don't know nothing, then it's going to look bad because they're going to be talking about stuff you don't know. You're like, oh, well, we just come straight out of this book. All of that shit is fake white man science. It's going to look bad. So you need to know these things, whether it's history, whether it's science, whether it's archaeology, whether it's about other religions. It says don't be ignorant in any matter, whether it's small or it's great. Let's go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 2. And we're going to read verse 15. So now we're establishing how do we figure out when the new moon actually is? Because especially when you first come into the truth, it's always the scripture, the scripture, the scripture, the scripture, the scripture. Understood. We understand the scriptures tell you that none shall want her mate. This book doesn't need anything to assist it, right? But here's the thing. We're in a time right now where you would have to go to extra biblical sources because the Bible's very simple. Scriptures even tell you, I think in Maccabees, this book was abridged. It was simplified. It was concise. It was made in a way that the simple could read it. That's literally that's why it was created this way. So like when you read in Genesis where it talks about in the beginning, matter of fact, I'm going to run to it real quick. Let me get to it real quick. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Well, guess what? That is your Big Bang Theory. Right. We just call it the Most High God, because from nothing, everything came. From this one source came all of this light, all of this energy, and as time progressed, everything else started to form within it. Well, guess what? That's literally what the Big Bang Theory says. They just say, well, it came from nothing. We don't know what it was. It was the Most High. It was the Most High. So let's go to, what did I say, 2 Timothy?
2 and 15, right?
Give me 2 Timothy. Yeah, I believe so. Let me double check. I'll be writing these things down. I'll be double checking at home, but in my brain it's still, I'm like, I don't know. Okay, 2 Timothy 2. And verse, let me see what 15 say. Yep, give me that.
2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Study to show thyself approved unto the Most High.
Read on.
A workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
So it says study. Study to show yourself approved. Study. This is very important. Don't be ignorant in any matter. And study to show yourself approved. You have to understand these things. Some people are absolutely against learning anything outside the scriptures, which is why, as Israelites, people say, you guys don't know anything. You don't understand the scriptures because you don't study the language. You guys don't understand science. So all you do is run to the Bible. So you guys are uneducated. That becomes a problem. That's why the scriptures literally tell you, one, to study to show yourself approved, Two, to not be ignorant in anything. You can't do that. You think Paul was going out there and well, all I know is the Torah. Nah, first of all, Paul knew a gang of languages. Paul studied a bunch of different languages. He was multilingual. Then he was a doctor in the law as well. One more. Give me Job chapter 8 and verse 8.
The book of Job, chapter 8 and verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Start that from the top. We gonna piece by piece. Read that again.
Job chapter 8, verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee.
It says inquire, look into it, seek it out, search it. Right, read.
Of the former age.
Of the who?
The former age.
Of your history. So we're specifying right now the history. Right? It says look into your history. Read.
And prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
And prepare yourself to search out the things of your forefathers. So take me back to the PowerPoint, Shamar. So let's ask this question again. How do we figure out when the new moon actually was? Read Job 8 and 8 again.
Job 8 and 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
Simply put, this is how we're going to figure it out. Let's search out what our forefathers did.
Literally.
That would make this is how we do it. Because again, when you read through these scriptures, you do not see, and on the new moon, when it is dark, ye shall blow the shofar. You don't see that. Right. Again, because it was already understood in that time. So there's a lot of things that when you read, it's like, okay, a perfect example, Abib. Watch this. Baraya, when is Abib?
The first month.
Okay. But when is it? When does it occur?
Spring.
In the spring. Okay. How do you know?
The harvest, the green ear.
But okay. So now my thing is, it says green ear, right? Okay. So what month does that usually fall in?
March, late March.
So how would you know that unless you understood anything about seasonal agriculture? How would you know that?
You wouldn't.
Okay. So to say the scriptures don't say around the time of March, around the springtime. It doesn't do that. So there's certain things that were understood in that time. So now we have to go and inquire of our forefathers. Be not ignorant in any matter, great or small. Study to show ourselves approved. We have to go and search this stuff out.
Right.
So this is how we're going to find out. We're going to search our history, search our forefathers, research these things to actually understand what it is. Take me to the PowerPoint. Next slide. Now, the way that about half of Israel keeps the new moon is referred to as the astronomical new moon, right? This is the dark moon. But let's read. It says, in astronomy, the new moon is the phase that occurs between the waning crescent and the waxing crescent. At this point, the moon is directly between Earth and the sun, or in conjunction. You'll hear that word a lot when brothers are talking about the astronomical new moon. In conjunction with the sun and the earth. And thus, it catches the sun's light fully on the side of the moon facing away from the earth. The side facing the earth appears completely dark. This is an astronomical new moon. Usually, at new moon, the moon is invisible to the naked eye when viewed from the earth. Right? Let's get another one. Again, all of my sources are at the bottom. Astronomical new moon continued. In historical astronomy, before the advent of high-powered telescopes and space travel, both scientists and lay people, so scientists, those that were cognitively intellectual, those that were very intelligent, and lay people, meaning regular people who were farmers or agriculturalists or graze the cattle, so on and so forth. Regular people, blacksmiths, these people often refer to the new moon as the first appearance of the waxing crescent. So this is how people originally did it. They waited for the first sighting, the first light, the first crescent. Today, astronomers sometimes use the term dark moon to refer to period when the moon is in conjunction with the sun and the earth and is invisible to the naked eye. Again, so sometimes they use the term dark moon, but also new moon, right? The term dark moon is used to avoid confusion due to the ambiguity of the new moon terminology. From the Farmer's Almanac, again, talking about the astronomical new moon. For astronomers, a new moon means no moon. So again, we're talking about scientists, astronomers, right? A new moon is essentially the opposite of a full moon. During a full moon, we see the side of the moon that is being illuminated by the sun, giving the moon its bright, glowing appearance. During a new moon, however, we see the side of the moon that is not being illuminated by the sun, which makes the moon blend in with the dark night sky. Again, we cannot see it. This is the astronomical new moon, right? So now, when did the dark moon become the new moon? Now, before we read this, matter of fact, we're going to read this first. Never mind. So now, when did the dark moon become the new moon? So originally, according to history, this was not the case. But somewhere, sometime, the new moon became the dark moon, right? The term new moon originally referred to the crescent phase on the first night it is visible, 1 or 2 days after the conjunction. So the conjunction or the dark moon was not the new moon. It was after the conjunction, right? Maritime records from the 19th century, so around 1800, distinguish the dark moon, the time when only earthlight illuminates the near side of the moon, from the new moon and the waning moon. So it says around the 19th century, the dark moon was distinguished from the new moon. So, the records from the 19th century distinguish the dark moon from the new moon and the waning moon. So we see around the 19th century is when we started having the new moon being the dark moon, right? So let's see in history. We're going to continue on with history to see. As the new moon nights are dark, they are often the best time to view the celestial objects like planets, meteor showers, and deep sky objects such as stars, clusters, nebulae, and galaxies. About a day after the new moon conjunction, the moon becomes visible again. The initial period, as only the thinnest sliver of a crescent becomes visible, used to be called the new moon. So when we used to see that very thin sliver, that just that little peak of light is what we used to refer to as the new moon, while the darkest phase was called the dark moon. So originally, they were distinguished. Originally, the dark moon was called the dark moon. The new moon was the sliver. So it's telling you that in history. Let's go even further back in history to around the time of Christ. Go ahead.
No, they had their own identity. They were separate, not one and the same.
Exactly. So the dark moon was called the dark moon, not the new moon. It was actually separated, two different things. So Philo of Alexandria. So this is a quick backstory or a quick synopsis of who he is. Philo Judaeus, also called Philo of Alexandria, was a Greek-speaking Jewish philosopher or a Greek-speaking Jew. This was a Jew, an Israelite. The most important representative of Hellenistic Judaism. His writings provide the clearest view of the development of Judaism in the diaspora. So this was an individual who grew up around the time of the Hellenization period, and he was one of the more prominent philosophers in this time, right? Now, note, Philo lived, if you look at his lifespan, 15 BC to 50 AD. Philo lived during the time of Christ and lived after Christ, even after Christ was crucified, right? So Philo of Alexandria's quote, "The first matter to be considered is that of the festivals. Now, there are 10 festivals in number as the law sets them down." Now, he's talking about all the festivals of Leviticus 23 plus the new moon and the 7-day Sabbath. So the third festival that it references is that which comes after the conjunction, which is after the dark moon, which happens on the day of the new moon in each month. So it says the new moon always comes after the conjunction or the dark moon. Read. Oh, excuse me. I'm reading. Following the order which we have adopted, we proceed to speak of the third festival, that of the new moon. First of all, because it is the beginning of the month. So the new moon is the beginning of the month. And beginning whether of the number or time is honorable. So they're expressing the importance of this day. And it said the new moon comes in after the dark moon. It comes in after the conjunction. The conjunction is what the dark moon is, right? Let's get another historical account. Again, 2 Timothy 2:15, Job 8:8. We're going into our history to find this stuff because it was known. It was common knowledge at the time. So the Lord didn't have to say, when ye shall see the first sliver of the crescent. He didn't have to say that. Everyone already knew this, right? So now we have to go into history. We have to do what the scripture says and inquire, right? So this is what we're doing. We're getting historical sources. Jewish Encyclopedia. Of the greatest significance, however, was the proclamation of the new moon. So the new moon had to be proclaimed, meaning people had to come out. They had to see it. They went to the Sanhedrin, which were the leaders at the time, and they told them, hey, we saw the new moon. Go proclaim it to Israel now. And that's when they would blow the shofar. So it's saying the proclamation of the new moon by president of the Sanhedrin, originally, of course, by the high priest. So it wasn't the Sanhedrin at first, but then we didn't have priests. So now it's only the Sanhedrin. Originally, our high priest used to do it. It says, just as in Rome, the Pontifex Maximus fixed new moon by proclamation. The Sanhedrin was assembled in the courtyard of Jerusalem on the 30th of each month from morning to evening. So they came out the 30th day in the morning and sat out there to see, can we see the new moon today? Are we going to see that sliver today?
Waiting.
God. Jerusalem at the 30th, from morning to evening, waiting for the reports of those appointed to observe the new moon. So you had to see it. You had to observe it, right? And after the examination of these reports, the president of the Sanhedrin, in the presence of at least 3 members, called out, the new moon is consecrated. Whereupon the whole assembly of the people twice repeated the words, it is consecrated. So this was their little tradition. It's like, okay, we see it, you guys repeat it. But the whole point is, when you look into history, it shows you it had to be observed. We had to actually see it, right? Actually, watch this. I want to do something. Let me go to my dictionary real quick. I want to get something. And then we're going to go into the Hebrew too, because I think we're going to get that scripture. Observe, to see, to watch, to perceive or notice, to regard with attention, especially so as to see or learn something, to watch, to view, or note for a specific official or other special purposes. So we see that as it pertains to observing something, you have to see it. You actually have to see it, right? Encyclopedia Judaica. You can keep, no, take it back to the PowerPoint. I want them to actually see the sources. Encyclopedia Judaica. Historically, new moon spotters, so they would have to spot it, in Israel, watch for the thin crescent to establish the beginning of each month. Once seen, they reported their sighting to the calendar court authorities of the Sanhedrin. Note what one authority says. Originally, the new moon was not fixed by astronomical calculations. So meaning they didn't sit there and say, okay, so we know the new moon is on this day, so now we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's about 30 days, so this is the next new moon. They didn't write it out. So that's what they're expressing. It says originally the new moon was not fixed. They didn't just have it on the calendar and say, we're just going to keep it on these days. It says, but solemnly proclaimed, meaning it was proclaimed. Again, we're going to go, let's get him again. Solemn. You can keep it on the PowerPoint, Shamar. Something solemn. Where are you? marked or observed with religious rites, having a religious character, made in due legal or other express form, the declaration or agreement, uttered, prescribed, or made according to religious forms, gravely or somberly impressive, causing serious thought or grave mood. So they said this is something that they sat there, they all looked up, they said, is that it? They're looking at each other. Do you see that? Yeah, we see it. Okay, so we all on one accord, we sat here, we examined it. It says, and it was solemnly proclaimed after witnesses had testified to the reappearance of the crescent of the new moon. Now, again, we saw Philo said this about, what was it, 15 BC? So we saw that Philo was talking about this around probably 1 BC, because remember, he was born around 1520 BC. So he was an adult at around 1 BC or 1 AD, around the time that Christ was walking the earth. So in the time of Christ, this is how the Jews were keeping the new moon, right? It says they had proclaimed it after witnesses, meaning the spotters, were out there and they testified. So at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Now watch this. Oxford English Dictionary. The original meaning of the term new moon, which is still sometimes used in non-astronomical contexts, is the first visible crescent. So now they're making a distinction. Non-astronomical context meaning not according to science. It's not astronomy, because remember, the astronomical new moon is the dark moon. What they're saying is the original meaning of the new moon, the term new moon, is the first visible crescent of the moon after the astronomical new moon, after the conjunction with the sun, which is the astronomical new moon. This thin waxing crescent is briefly and faintly visible as the moon gets lower in the western sky after sunset. That is very important as well, because what it's saying is literally the moon and the sun are so close together that when the sun is setting below the horizon, the moon is right behind it. So you have to be out there and you have to be attentive to see if you can catch it, because once that sun goes down, you have missed whether or not you could track or find the new moon. That's very important. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, and I want verse 1. So we had to observe our new moons. Deuteronomy 16, read that.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Most High thy power.
So it says we had to observe the month of Abib, right? So it's talking about you would have had to observe to be able to see when that month came in. I want to get the Hebrew word, shamar, right? H8104. The word is shamar. It says to keep, to watch, to observe, to guard, to be set aside, secure, to be careful, to beware, to examine. So we see that the word shamar, or the word observe, you had to see, you had to examine something. There had to be something that was seen, right? So how would the month of Abib's new moon be observed if we couldn't see it? How would we know when the new moon came in if we could not see it? How would we blow the shofar if we could not see a sign of the new moon? Because remember, in Numbers 10, it says, blow up the trumpet in the beginning of your months. How would we know if it's the beginning of the month? We don't see anything. There's no indication, right? Now, here's a question. So why did things change? How is it that it became dark? Let's go to Daniel chapter 7.
Bring it out.
Daniel chapter 7. We're going to start at verse 24.
The book of Daniel,
24 through 25.
chapter 7, verse 24. And the 10 horns
Read on.
out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise.
So this is talking about a particular kingdom of individuals. In short, these are the Edomites. This is Esau, right? Read.
And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first. And he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High.
So there's a specific king that comes out of this beast, right? Again, these are Edomites. This is the Edomite kingdom, right? It says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High. Read.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
And will wear out Israel. Put them under hard bondage. Kill them. Persecute them, right? Read.
And think.
And do what? Wait.
Think.
And think. Read.
To change times and laws.
Times and laws. Well, guess what? If he throws you off just a day, which he's done more than that because he's shifted all of the months. But if he throws you off just a day, he's changed how you are to keep these feast days. This is very important that we keep it the right way. So he said he will think that he could change times and laws. That's why some people say, well, the 9th month is September, so this is when we're supposed to keep dedication. No. The 9th month is determined by the moon and the stars and the sun. You have to know how to calculate these things, right? Same thing. Well, the new moon was for millenniums, known as the crescent. Ancient civilizations did that. Israel was one of those ancient civilizations that knew we had to cite the first crescent. History just showed that. Job 8 and 8. We had to inquire of our forefathers. We had to seek out this history. We had to not be ignorant of anything, great or small. We sought out the history. We see in history, our forefathers did just that. But Esau came into power. Again, this is knowing your history. Around 1800 in history, 1800, which was about 300 years ago, 200 years ago, 200 years ago, they said, well, I think we're going to say that the new moon is dark now. Right. That's what science is going to say, right? Very important to hear. He will think to change these times and laws. So in short, every month, once the sighting of the thin crescent is seen, will be considered the new moon. That's history. That's scriptural. So we saw the scriptures told us this is how you're going to figure it out. Because everything's not here. The book is abridged. We had to simplify it for the people. But I'm going to give you the way that you find these things out. Search out the answers of your forefathers. Inquire on the former time. Don't be ignorant of anything. Don't just say, well, I got the Bible right here. Y'all talking about the white man's science. Well, guess what? Sometimes you're going to need to use the white man's science to talk to other people. Because here's the thing. The scriptures tell you, Paul has said it. He said, I was all things to all men. So guess what? When he was in a circle with the cats that believed in Athena, he went over there and talked to them about Athena to bring them back to the Lord. When he was talking to people about astronomy, guess what? He knew enough about astronomy to talk to the people to bring them back and say, you know, that's really the Most High. And these are the reasons why. Here are the flaws in these things. This is very important. You have something?
Yeah, I got something for you.
Go ahead.
Let's go to Proverbs 25 and 2. Because in the spirit, this is what this brother is talking about in a nutshell. Right here. I'm going to just read it for you.
Okay.
As soon as I start reading it, this is you're going to know off the rip.
Okay.
Because this is what he's doing. Okay. He's inquiring, like Job 8 and 8 said, what did our forefathers do? Because like he said, the scriptures don't say March. So let's see what this is about. You ready for me to read it?
Go ahead.
Proverbs 25 and 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing.
Now watch this.
But the honor of
but the what?
But the honor.
But the honor. This is an honorable thing to do. Read.
Of kings.
Of kings. Of those that the Lord would consider a king, or those that would hold themselves to high esteem, but to those that are holding themselves in a certain light, a certain manner. Read.
Is to search out a matter.
You got to go and research this. You got to go and search out the matter. Because again, you ain't going to see it all through the scripture. Just like, well, prove to me that you're an Israelite. Well, the curses. Okay, a lot of people went through the curses. Right. How do you know that that's y'all specifically? Well, let's go look at the history. Guess what? We're stepping outside of the book to go into the history to prove these things. Well, the Jewish people went through the Holocaust. Well, let's go read about the Holocaust and what it really was about.
Right.
Now, let's compare it to this. Let's read Deuteronomy 28 and 15 on down, compare it to the history of the Jewish people, and compare it to the history of so-called African Americans and Native Americans, right? In the 10 tribes, Hispanics and Native Americans. You got to inquire. You got to go into your history because you ain't going to find all of that in the book. You're not going to find it all just sitting right here. This is, I'm going to start you off and you continue to search. Now, he gave us, same thing with who are the 7 heads and the 10 horns. How do you know that that's the EEC, the European Economic Community? How do you know that's the European Union? This gave you where to look, but then you had to go do your due diligence. So this is important because a lot of people are like, well, I don't see it in the scriptures. You're not going to see it in the scriptures.
They want to see it verbatim, just
the new moon and on the waxing crescent you're not going to see that. That's just not going to happen, right? Now watch this. Take me back to the PowerPoint. I want to show you something. Now this is what a new moon would look like, right? Now, question. We see this light here. We're going to keep it a beam, right? If this light wasn't showing, we see that this moon is blending in with the sky. Now, this is a telephoto lens camera. This isn't a naked eye. This is a zoomed in, probably by like 1,000 that caught this picture. The naked eye would not have been able to see this if that little sliver was not shining. So if we're observing the new moon, how will we do it if we can't see it?
Right.
Right? Take you to another one. Same thing. How would we see it? Matter of fact, let me see what it looks like on my phone. Yeah, I'm looking at it with you guys. How would we see this? Take away that little sliver that we consider the new moon. How can we observe it? We wouldn't be able to observe it. This one is off my phone. I took this picture. What was that? When we had first shifted over the new moon, which was around November. We were all out there. It was me, Brother Bishop Tazayawan, Bishop Yatab, Deacon Yashamai, and I might be missing a brother. I think it was Ashnapash. We all sat out. I was by the beach. Yashamai was by his home. Izar was by Dockweiler Beach. I was at Manhattan Beach. And we were looking for the new moon. This was the new moon. I barely saw this with my naked eye. I only saw the sliver. I can see nothing else. Same thing in this picture. And my phone is zoomed in, right? So how can we observe? Again, we have to see it. How would we be able to observe it if we can't see it? And let me circle back to it again. The scriptures do not say crescent moon or dark moon. It just says the new moon. It was already understood in that time when the new moon was. So how do we figure out when the new moon is? Job 8 and 8, 2 Timothy 2 and 15. We had to seek out Sirach 5 and 15. Couldn't be ignorant in any matter. We had to figure out what our forefathers were doing. We had to understand the history of these things, even understanding the history of astronomy and when these things came to be. That's scriptural. So we use the scriptures to help guide us, to show us, okay, how do we keep this new moon properly? Because again, there's a number of things that you will not get. If we're breaking down Daniel, we're breaking down the 7 heads and 10 horns. You're not going to find what that is in the Bible. There's nowhere in the Bible that says European Economic Community. There's nowhere in the Bible that says a bib starts in the spring. A bib starts in in March or April. You won't see that because it was known back then. It was already implied. So what we have to do, that Proverbs 25 and 2, read that again.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing.
This is the beauty of the Most High. Just like when Christ used to say, it is for you to know these things, but not for everyone else. Christ used to say the same thing, and he don't do nothing different from the Father. So it says the Lord, it's the glory of him to do this thing. Why? Because those that really love him and truly want to serve him properly are going to search it out. Read that from the top.
It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter.
It says that's an honorable thing. That's going to show your love to the Most High. It's going to show I really want to serve this man, the Most High. I'm not going to just go by what everybody is saying. Let me go and research it myself. Let me do what the scriptures say and find and seek and inquire in my history, right? Now we have shown, right? Let me go back. Bring it back to me, Shamar. So now we have shown what is the significance of why we would keep the feast days, why it matters that we keep these calendars, right? Because we have to keep these feast days. It's a sign between us and the Most High. How are feasts determined? By the instruments in the heaven. How many days are in a month, which is very important, so we can start calculating, right? Yeah, how many days are in a month, and then when does the new moon start? When is the new moon? So we see through history, we see through understanding and obeying the scriptures, finding out that the new moon is actually a crescent and it's not completely dark. There's a lot of brothers that keep it that way. And yeah, it's only a day or two off, but it's still very important that you keep it properly. 1 or 2 days off is a big deal to the Most High, because bottom line is you didn't keep it right. People say, well, we're rehearsing the righteous acts. Understood. But at the same time, if you're rehearsing the righteous acts and someone else has shown you that the way you're doing it is wrong, and the scriptures are saying it's this way, but you rather continue to do it this way because you want to stay with the congregation, or continue to do it this way because your leader didn't say it, are you really rehearsing the righteous acts? Because when you're rehearsing it, the goal is to perfect it. That's what rehearsal is for. So when it's game day, it's perfected. So you want in rehearsal to be doing it perfectly and properly. That's very important. So now we got when a new moon occurs. It's a sliver. It's not dark, right? Now, how do we determine the new year? That's the question. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 1. Deuteronomy 16 and 1.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 1. Observe the month of Abib.
Observe the month of Abib. Read.
And keep the Passover
keep the Passover in the month of Abib.
Unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night.
So this is when the Lord brought us out of Egypt. Flip over to Leviticus 23. We're going back to those. Leviticus 23. And we're going to read verses 4 and verse 5. So it said, observe the month of Abib. That's when the Passover is, right? Read.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which he shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month.
What month?
The first month.
So the first month, 14th day. Read.
At even is the Lord's Passover.
Is the Passover. So what was the name of that month?
Abib.
In Deuteronomy 16 and 1, it said, observe Abib and keep the Passover. Leviticus 23 says the first month is when we keep the Passover. So we know that the first month is the month of Abib, right? Now, question. When is Abib? How would we know? Let's go to the PowerPoint. Take me to the PowerPoint, Shamar, please. My beloved brother. When is Abib? Let's go to the Hebrew first. Abib. Outline. Hold on. Let me take it up here. Hold on. Outline of biblical usage. So again, these are the different ways that it can be used, but we have to put it in context. Fresh, young barley, ears. Barley, month of ear forming. Of greening of crop or growing green, Abib. Month of the Exodus and the Passover, between March and April. Again, it doesn't say that in the scriptures, though. Right. But when we start getting the definitions, it shows us this. Now I'm going to show you another one, Abib. I have two different concordances that I use consistently. Exodus 13 and 4, we got the word Abib right here, the day you came out in Abib. Month of Abib, the first month of the Canaanite. Now remember, I won't say we infiltrated. We took over that land. The Lord gave us that land of Canaan, which is what we refer to as modern-day Israel. Calendar equal to Nisan. Now, Nisan is what it was called when we went into the Babylonian captivity. That's what we started calling it when we left out of it, because that's what they called it. So originally it was Abib. That's what we called it in Hebrew. We went into captivity to Babylon, and then we started calling it Nisan. Between March and April, a head of grain already ripe but still soft. So we see here the month of Abib occurs somewhere between March and April. This is the springtime. But again, how would you know that if you just observe the month of Abib? We wouldn't know that just reading the scriptures. Search out the matter. Be not ignorant in any matter, great or small. Right? Abib. This is from this particular website down here, av1611.com. Abib, Hebrew, swelling, protuberant, to produce the first or early fruit of full-grown ear of corn. The first month of the Jewish ecclesiastical year, also called Nisan, it begins at the spring equinox. It's at or around, to be specific. It's around the spring equinox and answers to the latter part of March and the beginning of April. So it always falls late March, early April. Its name is derived from the full growth of wheat in Egypt, which took place anciently, as it does now at that season. So again, we gotta look at some extra biblical sources to understand what Abib is. So we see that it falls around March, April. We've seen that in the Hebrew when they gave us the cultural context, and then we see it here with the definition. Let's get another one, Bible study tools, right? An ear of corn, the month of the newly ripened grain, these are the scriptures, the first of the Jewish ecclesiastical year, the seventh of the civil year. That's a whole different lesson, don't worry about it. It began about the time of the vernal equinox, which is usually around March 21st. It was called Nisan after the captivity, which was the Babylonian captivity. On the 15th day of the month, harvest was begun by gathering a sheaf of barley, which was offered unto the Lord on the 16th. So we see here that Abib is in the spring. Then they started to clarify. They said around the vernal equinox. Now, some people argue, well, you don't see vernal equinox in the Bible. You are absolutely right, but take me back to Genesis, please. Genesis 1. Because I think and the thing is, some people do not exactly know what the vernal equinox is. So take me back to Genesis 1. Let's talk about this vernal equinox really quickly. 1 and 14 and then 16.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14. And the Most High said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night.
So there's going to be lights that divide the day from night. This is the sun and the moon. Read.
And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years.
Well, and that's the stars as well, because when the night comes around, that's when we start to see those lights as well. And it said they're going to be for signs, seasons, days, and years, right? We went over earlier the way that we determine what month we're in, whether it's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th. It's both the moon and the stars, right? Just keep this in your mind. So it said the Lord made these lights to be signs. Verse 17, 16.
Verse 16, and the Most High made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
The stars were also some lights. These lights, right? Now, let's talk about the vernal equinox, because we do not see it in the Bible, right? He made the stars also. Take me to the PowerPoint. Vernal equinox. The vernal equinox is also known as the first point of Aries. Since about 2,000 years ago, the point on the celestial sphere where the ecliptic and celestial equator crossed was on the constellation Aries, right? So it says the vernal equinox also is Aries, the constellation, the star cluster of Aries. We remember the stars are also how we determine the seasons. They're for signs and seasons and days and years, just like the moon and the sun, right? So the way that the stars work in this equation is there are clusters that you can see, and you can read this in history. And when you see these particular clusters of stars or constellations, it will determine what season we're in, what month we're in, rather. So that's why you get, I'm a Capricorn because I was born around January such and such, and December such and such, and January such and such. Because that's when the Capricorn constellation comes in. When you're born, when people say, I'm an Aries, you're born between mid to late March and early to mid-April. Because that's when that constellation is in, right? So this is how we know that Abib starts in the spring around the vernal equinox, right? So, proof that the first month is in the constellation of Aries. Again, take me back to Job 8 and 8. We're going to keep hitting these scriptures because I want to make sure that I'm drilling it in you guys. And it's not just, oh, there's a bunch of sources coming out, but we ain't got scriptures. I got to make sure that it's understood. I got to make sure that you see the purpose of this. Give me that in the Job 8 and 8.
The book of Job, chapter 8, verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee.
So we're searching it out. We're inquiring. We're researching. Read.
Of the former age.
We're looking into the past. Read.
And prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
And we getting ourselves ready. We locking in. We focusing in to search out our forefathers. What was it that they were doing? How did they keep these things? Right?
How did they do it?
All right. Now take me back to the PowerPoint. Searching out our forefathers. Josephus. A number of brothers have used Josephus. And simply put, Josephus was one of the leaders, one of the Roman generals at the time. I'm sorry, one of the Israelite generals at the time of the siege of 70 AD. Josephus got captured and turned on Israel and ended up moving up in the ranks of the Roman army. And he had access to pretty much every historical anything because he was on the Roman side and he was up under them and he was a general over there. And he had access to their libraries and all of their information. Now, again, he grew up as an Israelite. He was an Israelite. He grew up with us. And then he ended up getting, he turned on us because he got captured, right? So he's an Israelite. That's my point. He's an Israelite. He's an historian. He was born probably about 20, 30 years after Christ had died. I don't remember the exact date, but he was born around like 40, 30. No, it was like 30. Actually, he was born right after Christ had died, or he was very, very young when Christ had died. Nonetheless, this is the historical account of Josephus. In the month of Xanthicus, now Xanthicus is also a Abib, right? Which is by us called Nisan. So again, we see that this is a Abib because Nisan was also called a Abib after we were taken out of the Babylonian captivity. So from that point forward, this is what we call it the month, Nisan. But now in Rome, we call it Xanthicus. In the month of Xanthicus, which is by us called Nisan, and is in the beginning of our year, this is a Abib, on the 14th day of the lunar month, when the sun is in Aries. So the constellation of Aries. For in this month, it was that we were delivered from the bondage of the Egyptians, and so on and so forth, and which is called the Passover. I don't have to read the whole thing, but the whole point is, we see that the first month was around the vernal equinox, also known as the constellation of Aries. Bring it back to me, Shamar. So, actually, take it back to the PowerPoint. I'm sorry. Then you're going to bring it back to me. So, we're going to recap. To create a Hebrew calendar, we must know when a new moon is actually determined. If your moon is off, every feast day will also be on an incorrect day. So if your moon is off, your new moon is off, the whole feast, all your feasts will be off. We have to know when the new year begins, because if you do not bring in the new year in its proper time, guess what? Every single feast will be off. So this is very, very, very important. It's very pertinent, even pertinent to salvation, because when you read in Leviticus, it says, if you don't keep these feast days, you are to be cut off. The Lord is done with you. So we got to do our best to keep it properly, right? And also, I didn't put it in here, but recapping, we also understand now the importance of keeping the feast days. It's literally a sign between us and the Most High. Now, I'm going to exit out of here and pull up a calendar. I did like the first 3 months, right? So let me escape. Make sure I can see. Where's the email? Shamar, can you see, are you able to see what I have on the screen right now? In the email, not on the PDF. I'm sorry, not on the PowerPoint. Let me see something. to make sure that you guys can see it. Shamar, can you see the email?
Email.
You said what?
You said the email?
Yeah, can you see the email?
Did you send it to me?
No. When you're looking at the screen, can you see the email on the PowerPoint? Okay, no, you can't see it. Okay, let me get out of here really quickly. Let's get this situated. Where are you? Oh, you know what I can probably do? Give me a second. It's a PDF, not an image. Download it. There we go. And then put it here. Open him up. See if I can move it over here. Can we see it now, Shamar? Okay, perfect. This is going to be rough. Okay. So, the vernal equinox, which I should have pulled up here too, but it's okay. So, the vernal equinox always falls around between March 19th and March 21st, right? So, it said that the constellation of Aries, which is also the vernal equinox, falls around this time. Now, the first new moon, because remember, we're talking about the new moon to begin the months. The first new moon is here. So it's just a few days away. So it's around the vernal equinox. So this is where we would keep our first new moon because it's right next to the point of Aries. So we would be keeping our feasts in season. First new moon at sundown, the 14th at sundown, right? Now, this is the new year. So from here, you count 14 days, 15 days really, and you'll have the Passover. So day 1 at sundown, day 2 at sundown, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at sundown. So at sundown, this would be the 14th. We're looking for the 14th at sundown, which would be the 15th. That would be this day. So the Passover falls here, March 28th, right? So it's the 15th day, 16, 17, 18. What day did it stop on? 18, 19, 20. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's count the Passover days. So this was day 1 at sundown, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Because remember, Passover is a 7-day feast, right? So this ends here, which would be the 21st day. So 21st, 22nd at sundown, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. Oh, I didn't put the new moon in here. I'm sorry, guys. Let me pull up my calendar so I can give you the exact date. Calendar. Where are you? Here it is. So the new moon would have fallen on where is my? That's the wrong one. Here it is. The second new moon would have fallen on this 30th, the 1st, right? This is the new moon. This is where the new moon should fall. So now, remember, the scripture said before we were calculating like I'm doing right now, we used to just reckon. So we knew approximately when 30 days was, and on the 30th day, we would all go out and watch for the new moon. So here at True Nation, that's exactly what we do. We do both. So we'll create a calendar and let everyone know this is tentative because the new moon may come in a day earlier. It may come in a day later. We have to go out and observe, but we will also create a calendar for the people so they know and they can prepare and understand it's going to be around this time. And on that day, we have brothers, about 6 or 7 of us, that are sitting out by the beach on the west side, because you can only see the new moon coming in from the west, because that's where the sun sets. And we're sitting there waiting to see if we can see that crescent, that very first sighting. You got something up? Yeah. It's exactly. It's subject to change. This is why this is a tentative schedule. It's a tentative calendar, but it's usually around this time, like one between a day. Actually, it's usually just a day difference. So we say the 13th, but we're going to go out on the 13th before the sun goes down to see if we can see it. And if not, then it's more than likely going to come in on the 14th, right? So this is what we do. We have a fixed calendar that we create, and we also have observers, right? So this will be the second month. And then 15 days from there will be the second Passover, because we have to keep a second Passover for those that couldn't keep it. So again, I'm just showing you a basic calendar. Now we have May. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have counted. Excuse me. So this is the new moon, which is day 1, day 2 at sundown, day 3 at sundown, day 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at sundown. So this was the 13th day at even, which would be the 14th day. Now the 14th day at even, which would be the 15th day, is the second Passover. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21st day, which is when second Passover ends. 21st, 22nd. I think I wrote that down wrong. This might be the wrong date for that one. No, it isn't. What is a memorial assignment? This is right. I'm sorry. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. Now watch this. It was 29 days before the what is it called? Before the new moon comes in. So again, this is why they say it's 29 and a half days. It's approximately 30 days. And we will, if you just look at the lunar calendar, if you just look at the lunation cycle, you will see some days a full moon sits up there for 2 or 3 days. Some days the moon is in its dark phase for 2 or 3 days. So sometimes the month will be 29 days. Some days it'll be 30 days. Sometimes it'll be 28 days. Sometimes it'll be 31 days. But it will average out to approximately 30 days, which is 29 and a half days. So that's what we have to understand. So, what is this? And then we have Pentecost down here. I just created the whole calendar for the 3 months. So, with all that being said, that's basically how you calculate it. I'm going to start over with the calculation part so you guys can understand. So, we had to determine when the new moon was, right? Then we had to determine when the new year was. The new year has to be near the point of Aries or the vernal equinox, which is around this time. You have to do your due diligence and find this out yourself. This is only a few days off from the point of Aries. So the springtime still comes in, and we will still keep the Passover, which is here, in the time of Aries. That's what the scripture said. You will keep Passover in Aries. That's what Josephus said, right? He said, keep it in Abib, which is around the vernal equinox, according to science, according to history, according to our forefathers. And so this is how we count it. This was the new moon that comes in near the vernal equinox. This makes it the new year. Day 1 at sundown, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at sundown, 15 at sundown. This is Passover. Then you continue to do it for the next couple of months. You literally are doing a count, right? So with that being said, you can bring it back to us. I prayed to the Most High that this was edifying. I know what we did. We brought out a number of scriptures, but I know the way that Israel is, sometimes it's, well, you don't see this and that in the scriptures. I hope that there was some clarification that was brought out pertaining to that specifically, because again, 7 heads, 10 horns. When is Passover? When is Abib? When is the new moon? You don't see word for word what these things are, because a lot of this, it was already understood. A lot of this they already knew. Same thing with the Gentiles. How do we know what the Gentiles are? Guess what? A lot of them already knew when they were talking about Gentiles that they were talking about the scattered. They just considered them Gentiles too. You have to go into the history and understand the history of the Greeks to know who the Gentiles are, right? So all that to say, sometimes you have to go outside the scriptures to further support the scriptures. Because again, we don't see new moon. You don't see the new moon as dark. We don't see the new moon as a crescent. You don't see any of that, right? So hopefully that was edifying. I pray to the Most High that it was edifying. I pray to the Most High that you saw through the scriptures why we hit outside sources. I hope you understand that it's important to not ignorant in any matter, great or small. Study to show yourself approved. Do your due diligence. Seek out your history and understand what we were doing in the past. Because same thing with the 7-day Sabbath. Well, it was determined by the moon. Well, it was Friday sundown or Saturday sundown. Well, how would you find that out? It doesn't say Friday or Saturday in the scriptures. You got to go look into history. And when you look into history, because I've done a lesson, the lunar Sabbath doctrine that we did, I did a lesson on that. And I clarified, I specified there was a point in time when we were still in Jerusalem, still knowing our customs. And when we were being sieged, the Romans found out, oh, they don't fight on the day of Saturn. The day of Saturn is literally Saturday. That's literally what that is. So we're going to go in and destroy them on Saturn's day or the day of Saturn. But you have to go outside the scriptures to find this stuff out. And you have to do your due diligence. So Lord willing, it was edifying. Lord willing, there's some understanding on how to calculate the calendar. Lord willing, it was edifying on understanding, the new moon, how the constellations work and how we determine how do we create our calendars. So, it may become a time where you can't get on the internet and see how the other camps are keeping it. You're going to have to learn to calculate it yourself. So, Lord willing, it was edifying. Lord willing, we got the brothers and sisters got something out of it, gave them some understanding, solidified their beliefs in it. I'm going to do my spiel like I always do at the end of class. Every first Monday, Q&A. Ask the questions you're scared to ask your pastors. Ask the questions that you're scared to ask your leaders. We don't bite people's heads off. We come straight out the scriptures. We come out of information. We don't profess to know everything, but the information we know, the things that we do know, we will give you. We will answer you rather. And if we don't know, we will let you know. We'll get back to you. Q&A Monday. It's been very rare that we haven't been able to answer a question. So definitely tap in, tune in, get your questions answered every first Monday of the month. Esau's month, not the lunar month, right? Tuesdays, Bible basics. Those of y'all who ain't got a foundation yet, that's where you get your foundation. Get in on Tuesdays, learn the basics, learn the law, learn the basic history, get yourself a strong foundation because that's what's going to keep you in this truth. A lot of people jump into the truth and want to go straight into the prophecies and book of Revelation and who is Esau or whatever. Get the strong foundation, get your basic history, get your basic laws, all of that good stuff, and it's going to carry you a long way. Bible basics, tap in. Wednesday, world history according to the Bible. That is a very good, to me, that's one of the most important classes. Of course, the basics, but the history is so important because you got a lot of people that start questioning your faith. Well, show me where the Israelites wasn't in Egypt. The Israelites wasn't over here. Guess what? We touch on all of that in history class. Give you all type of sources, all type of rebuttals, all type of information you need to combat that and solidify your faith. Second and fourth Thursdays. Stick to the script in the classroom or Chopper City where we cutting up false doctrines. The second Thursday, it's usually when it is in the classroom or Chopper City. Second Thursday. Fourth Thursday, current events. This month because there's a feast day this month, right? There's a feast, so we won't be able to, we won't be doing current events this month, but every second and fourth, we got in the classroom or Chopper City, and then we got current events. Friday, bishops. Bishop Yatab or Bishop Izar. Always got something for us. Yatab, room 144 is what it's referred to. Friday class, open and Sabbath, room 144. Definitely want to tune into the bishops. Yatab usually give you some crazy breakdowns on certain doctrines that we got to deal with, whether it's false religions, false holidays, folly days, breakdown on, who Esau, like that's where you get, people who want to be all deep and all of that. That's where you get those. Bishop Yatab is into that, and then Izar hits you with you honestly you get anything from Izar low key. So you got Bishop Yatab, Bishop Izar. They always bringing some heat on Fridays. Open the Sabbath, room 144. Heavy in the scriptures. All praise to the Most High. And then the closing Sabbath. Feed the sheep. Closing Sabbath, right? Bishop Tazayawan, who never fails to impress. Bishop Tazayawan, bring the heat. Bishop Tazayawan, give you that spiritual soul, that food for your soul, whether it's feeding your spirit, getting your mind right, giving you breakdown on doctrines, giving you breakdown on history. You don't know what you're going to get from Tazayawan, but you know damn well it's going to be good. I guarantee you that. Tap into them classes. Brother Michael, we're located in Los Angeles. I just saw the comment. We out here in Los Angeles, California. So yeah, y'all tap into these classes. Y'all lock in. Y'all like. Y'all share. Y'all subscribe. Because we out here trying to feed the nation. And that's the sole purpose of this joint. We gotta wake up the lost sheep so we can get out of this hellhole. So with that, I'm Brother Darash. This is Brother Banaya with another episode of Stick to the Scripts. And this was Hebrew calendar. How do we calculate our feast days? We are signing out. Shalom.